I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting twice daily, Monday through Friday at 12 noon and 5 p.m. Once on Saturday at 5 p.m. Today it's 5:30, and we have interviews dispersed throughout the week. We had a good one today.
Yes, thank you so much to Fergus Hodgson, because it was a very interesting conversation as well. And before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe because it really does help us out. We try to read all your comments live, but if you really want us to read it and you feel so inclined, you can always super chat and we pause the whole show for those. Also, we heard there was a parade in Mirror. Thank you, Stephen Jensen, for letting us know, and we'll read all about it in a little bit.
Well, I think Todd made it out there. I was reading the comments, so absolutely fantastic to see the community is supporting events and things going on throughout the province.
Exactly.
Or we should say the country.
The country.
Soon to be.
The country. Should we start with the comments?
Yeah, let's go into the comments. There's quite a few today. And I'd say thanks to the real Stephen Jensen for signing up for a monthly membership. We really appreciate everybody that has signed up for monthly memberships.
Yes.
It kind of brings a little bit of, I guess, security to us knowing what's coming each month.
Exactly. So thank you so much. And again, yes, memberships are open, not because we want to put anything behind a paywall, but in case somebody wants to support us monthly, you can do that. Thank you so much. Todd says, that was fun with Fergus today. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed reading all your comments as well. We were kind of in the middle of editing the one for tomorrow, so I wasn't able to reply to all of them, but thank you so much.
Well, and we appreciated him actually coming into the chat near the end and saying hi to the audience. So that was fantastic.
Exactly.
I seen Todd saying, "Oh, I hope Fergus is here," and then he came in at the end. So
yes, and thank you so much, Stephen Jensen, also for the $20 super chat,
wow.
saying, "Hi guys, we had our first local event in Mirror today, the May Day Parade. Me and Tammy Brains Float took first place, and Mr. and Mrs. Alberta took second place. Represented Alberta Independence with 15 people. Thank you for doing that, and that sounds fun."
Absolutely fantastic. And if you have future events, let us know a little bit in advance, and we'll let everybody know. Again, we have a show twice daily, so we can put the message out twice.
Yes, we're going to help promote it.
And also, if there's UCP meetings coming up, let us know that, because we want to have a big turnout at those UCP meetings. I really appreciate what Stephen did last time.
Yes, exactly. And moving on, Todd says, the parade in Mirror was a success this morning. Stephen Jensen and Cruz Float won first prize, beat Best Float Plastered in Alberta Flags. We were a hit with the crowd passing out candy and mini Alberta flags. That's very cute.
Fantastic. I don't know. I wonder let us know how the weather was there, because Marty posted a video today and he said it was freaking snowing by him 3 inches. So crazy weather up there.
Yeah. Todd says, Patsy was even in the parade, smiling and waving. Glenn Gunn says hello and says, enjoyed the snow today. So apparently wherever Glenn is, Calgary, I think, it is snowing. Todd says, somehow the bad weather missed us in Mirror. We just had a little cold.
Oh, God.
That's good.
You're on the right side of the Lord there.
Todd says, was lots out for the parade still? Oh, well, lots of people out still. Todd says, got Chris to sign my copy of Derek's book too today, How Alberta Got Its Independence.
Oh, fantastic.
Good. Todd also says, and bought some merch off of him too, of course, big blue hoodie. That's good.
Well, Todd was busy today because he was in our chat as well when that interview premiered. I seen all of his comments. We appreciated him. Yeah. And then he was at the event in Mirror. So great for him.
Glenn Gunn says, like Dwight Yoakam, I'm always late. And Todd says, I told him our floats category was freedom and puppies. And also says, like the judges before we took off, going around asking each entry. Pete says, great cover illustration, very apt for the thumbnail.
Oh, yeah. And it took a while to make that. I had to take the daily counter off just today. It will be back on every other episode, but I couldn't get the images to fit properly so everybody would understand what it was.
Todd says, discotheque. Doggy. And Stephen Jensen says, thanks for coming out and supporting the parade in Mirror. Hope you had fun with us. Pete says, hold on. So Greta Thunberg's new struggle is getting to Cuba. Hypocritical much? I know.
Oh my God.
She can paddle there on a canoe.
I was surprised she wasn't in Venezuela. I'm sure she made an X post about it though.
Todd says, it was so super duper fun to see all happy smiling faces everywhere and candy and freedom and puppies. And Todd also says, the bad weather missed us somehow, just a bit cold, but not a lot of wind.
Well, hopefully soon every day is going to be Freedom Day up in Alberta, and that float's really going to kind of represent what Alberta is going to become there.
True.
Okay, let's go into, I think I put breaking news. So most of the episode today is actually going to revolve around the pipeline and what happened yesterday. There was a lot of different takes and news that came out on that. So I kind of really want to break it down.
So let's go into breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about
starting with from dishonorable Thomas Lukasik says, by hook or by crook, Alberta government is committed to give separatists an opportunity to vote for breaking up Canada. So was he. Now it appears that the Premier wants to be the proponent of a separatism referendum using the Forever Canadian question without First Nations consultation.
Yeah, and they're trying to counter message this before this is even a thing. I think this is the most likely scenario Danielle Smith is going to try to take. The question is slightly open, so she can use this on a referendum for October 19th. After hearing Jason Levine and he kind of saying the path forward, this is the most likely path for the Premier. I wish she would just take the path where she put the question on herself and really grew a real spine. That being said, with this question on there, it leaves a lot of holes. I think there's a lot of weaknesses in putting this question on there, and he will be able to counter message as well.
Fellow Canadians, by now you must be confused about what's happening with separatism and the referendum in Alberta. Well, as you know, the separatist question has been blocked by courts and cannot proceed to a referendum because a proper consultation with First Nations hasn't been conducted. So I'm hearing that this government now wants to do an end run around the decision and consultation and place the Forever Canadian question on a referendum. That is wrong. Nearly 500,000 Albertans have not signed this petition to have a referendum, but wanted this question to be voted on in the legislature. So we're not standing down. We know that this government will try to have a referendum. So please join us at forever-canadian.ca. Join our movement, and we will be ready for whatever the government decides to throw at us. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, and we all know what happened there. This isn't an in run around. This was always the plan. She left both doors open in case one door was shut. Again, I wish she would put the question on herself and not have to use his question, because he's going to keep saying this all the way through. We didn't want this. That's not what the document said, and he filed those documents twice, so he can cry me a river for all I care.
And I am glad that he's now stuck between a rock and a hard place, because every time he tries to do something like this, there is that evidence from beforehand showing that, yes, he also wanted that question asked. So now sit with it.
Absolutely. And he's just one, I'm assuming he's French because he's got a hard accent, but there are a lot of people in Quebec right now supporting Alberta independence. We did that interview with Nico, and the PQ is really raising their voice. They actually came out to Alberta last year and said they completely are behind Alberta independence, and behind the scenes, they're having conversations with a lot of the political figures within Alberta and Alberta independence. Hopefully they'll bring that to the forefront so everybody kind of knows what's going on, and there can be a huge national conversation coming from that.
True. But also with a lot of the pipeline going to nowhere announcement yesterday from Carney and Danielle Smith, there was another announcement too. Mark Nixon says, quote, the UAE just announced they are building a new pipeline opening next year. Canada today announced the pipeline with a 9-year timeline with billions for carbon capture. Liberals call this moving at unimaginable speed.
And leave it up here for a minute, because I was watching The Fringe last night, and Derek brought up one of other Mark Nixon's posts that I didn't happen to see. And I don't know if he was being sarcastic or being serious, but he was bragging that Danielle Smith got it done. There's an oil pipeline. I don't know if he just didn't know the inner workings of the deal or what's up, but I'm glad to see him calling him out now. So we can play it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you know who is turning on production? The UAE. It says it will open the West-East pipeline next year. That will bypass the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE ditched OPEC, and now they are accelerating infrastructure to make sure that their neighbor Iran is irrelevant. And meanwhile, you know who is
accelerating infrastructure. That pipeline was not built. They're going to finish it up and get it up and running within the year. Absolutely fantastic for them. That should kind of show all Canadians and all Albertans what they're dangling in front of Danielle Smith is just like the cover for the thumbnail today. It's just good parenting from Mark Carney to keep her busy while he federalizes everything through the 30 by 30 program and a sovereign wealth fund. This is step one. He's going to put multiple layers on top of that. That's why he's trying to delay these projects, so all the benefits and all the profits will go into the federal government's coffers, not Albertans.
Exactly. But now let's go into the comments and then into Alberta Stay Free. Todd says, yeah, Guy and crew, let's go Alberta independence. Yes. And Stephen Jensen says, I'll email you a few pics. Yes, please do. Actually, I'm really interested in seeing it.
Absolutely.
And Mike, Freedom Honey, hello, says smash the like button. Thank you so much. And we do have an interview next week coming out with Mike. So that was very interesting too.
Well, we got a little bit of an easier week next week. We didn't contact a bunch of people to interview. We're going to catch up on all the interviews we haven't released.
Yes.
Then we're going to start interviewing people and releasing them one day after we interview review them. So it will work much better, especially since people are actually responding to us now.
And Steven Jensen, thank you so much
thank
for the
you.
$5 super chat, saying his messaging isn't slanted at all, lol, and leaves out the facts. He actually checked off the referendum. No, his voice is massive lack of brain cells.
Absolutely. He wants to pitch it one way, then he wants to pitch it in another way. He's got his head so far up Carney's arse that he doesn't know which way is Ottawa.
Why'd you go British on me there?
Well, I didn't realize what I was doing. Oh, because I don't like that. You get on me when I actually curse.
Yes.
So
that's still cursing though, but in an accent.
But not
in a bad accent.
Not for American social media. I think they don't know the curse words in British. Neither do I, but
Alberta Nan for Independence says, Tommy, the paperwork you filed stated a referendum. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Alberta Nan, thank you. I was about to say this, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't. Says he's Polish. I figured because of the last name, Lukasik.
Thanks for correcting me there. So he's not French. He sounds French, though. I'll say that.
Interesting that he's Polish and yet completely the other way around. Too much Canada for him, I guess.
Well, a lot of Polish people, especially in Europe, that's one of the places you get a lot of people with an independent and freedom spirit. So it's a shame that he's not one of those people.
Well, I mean, there had to be a few, by the way. And where are we? Charlie Defoe. Oh, we listened to your song yesterday on Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. And thank you for letting us know where it was.
We played part of it, and then we told the audience to go watch the rest in full. We didn't want to take all the view count, and we also recommended that everybody gives it a thumbs up. So hopefully you've seen some increased views and thumbs up from that.
And thank you for sharing it as well.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, and I think we do have to keep doing that kind of stuff as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that people are doing it. Hold on. Sean, hello, Sean, says he is definitely not from Canada. Oh, yeah, 2-minute rule applies in Canada now. Guess he is Canadian. Sarcasm intended.
Yeah.
Anybody can be Canadian, except Canadians. Todd says he's Polish, I think, guy. Lukasik, yeah.
Yeah.
I figured from the last name it was somewhere in the Eastern
For
Europe.
some reason, I hear a hard French accent. So maybe when he immigrated,
I think
immigrated
it's a
to
hard
Quebec.
Polish accent.
You think?
Yeah, that's a Polish
It
accent.
doesn't sound like a Polish accent to me.
And
I can obviously from his last name, he's going to be Polish, but maybe he immigrated to Quebec first and then came out to Alberta.
I don't know.
Okay, let's keep going here.
Because that's the first thing I thought was Polish. I just didn't want to say it. Yes, I see you tapping on the little table. David W. Carlson says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Austin Westwood said, happy Saturday evening, Nat and Guy. We always forget to say happy Friday or happy weekend, but yes, thank you so much. And Mike says, Thomas is Polish.
And thank you for all the viewers that are tuning in on a Saturday. We really appreciate you sharing the weekend with us. So I'm always surprised when I see, oh, wow, there's 45 people watching or whatever it is at the time. And I'm like, I always think right before we go into the Saturday stream, people are going to be out doing things.
And Michael Drader, thank you also so much for becoming a member.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say something else. Pete says, Lukasik's Polish born. Oh, yeah. Lukasik's Polish born was an Alberta PCMLA from 2001 to 2015.
Oh, I didn't know he was an MLA. Thanks for the information there.
You didn't?
No, I didn't know that.
I knew that. Alberta Nan says he's something. Yeah, he is something. And Charlie Defoe says, oh, thank you. Great to hear you like my song, Alberta Strong and Free. Yes, and go check it out. I'll try to link it down below in the comments afterwards as well, as I look for it while we go through the stories. And that's it.
Yeah, let's go into Alberta Stay Free here. So a lot of pipeline news coming out, a lot of how the national news is trying to pitch it. I mean, a lot of different looks and angles on this thing today.
Yeah.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And yes, exactly. Starting with from yesterday, Daniel Smith saying a new pipeline is not just good for Alberta, it's good for Canada, more revenue, more investment, and more jobs to build a stronger, more secure and independent future for, I love that she used that word, for Canada. I joined CBC to talk about it.
It's just shocking how much money she's willing to give away in order to get some crumbs.
What does this agreement with Mark Carney and the promise to have a yes or no on a pipeline by September of next year, what does that do to satisfy the concerns of Albertans who don't think Canada works for them?
Well, I can tell you what ATB has said. They've said if we had another 1.5 million barrels per day of oil in export, we would generate $31 billion worth of GDP. Governments get about 40% of that. The federal government gets half, and we get about half. So you're talking about $10 billion potentially of additional revenue coming in.
$10 billion and the government's going to get all the rest. This could build Alberta like we've never seen before. And that's just from one pipeline. Now that this deal is starting to get written up and the MOU is signed, I understand it's just an MOU, but is Mark Carney going to kind of rush this through? So if Alberta does get its independence at some point, we're we're obligated to continuously hand money over to Ottawa and the federal government even after we get our independence, because that would be ridiculous. And that's why I've been saying, and a lot of audience members have been saying, no deals until after we have a vote on independence.
Yeah.
That goes a long way towards addressing issues of lower taxes, building infrastructure, taking care of health, taking care of education. Many of, not just us, but every province across the country is running deficits, including the federal government. And so having these kinds of major projects that generate that kind of revenue, that's going to solve all of our problems. That's why I say it's not just good for Alberta, it's good for Canada too. And we would like to build a whole lot more here and support our friends and neighbors in doing the same thing.
First of all, we shouldn't have those problems of every single province is in debt, especially Alberta. Alberta shouldn't be in debt. She did overspend, especially on the year, and I called her out at the time, on the year we're going to have a referendum vote. We want people to feel that we're financially secure, because we are. She had to really put an effort into overspend by $9 billion. Now, I understand oil prices are going up, and she's going to get out of that predicament, especially with possibly this MOU that comes in a couple of years, if it even comes. By the time it does come, I'm fully expecting a lot of natural resources to be federalized by that time. She's also setting the precedent and pigeonholing every single future natural resource project to come up to agree to all these carbon taxes as well as regulations and restrictions.
And exactly, like this pipeline will not fix anything because it is still attached and tied to all of the restrictions and impositions that come from the federal government, and also continue to benefit the federal government in an outsized way. If Alberta was independent, when Alberta is independent, you would be able to make all of these things even faster, but also benefit fully from them.
Yeah, and we want to make sure we can maximize leverage over BC and these other provinces or other negotiating partners. So we'll kind of see what happens. But BC and the First Nations in BC are currently saying they're still going to block it. There's still that ships into Tidewater as well that BC is blocking. So the U.S. is still the best trading partner. Yes, I want to see trade diversified, but I don't want to see it diversified through regulations and giving almost half of the profits to the federal government to have a national welfare program for provinces that just don't want to access their own natural resources.
Exactly. But also, from Rise of Alberta says, quote, when a country punishes the productive eventually leave. Canada in 2029 after the exit of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Quebec.
Yeah, and this would be the start, really. Like, look at the East Coast there. All those things that are just off the East Coast I think would separate as well, become independent nations, or have to join Quebec or figure something else. And British Columbia on the other side would be looking at a very similar situation. Now, BC would be in a better situation than those smaller eastern provinces, but Alberta would have a lot of negotiating leverage over them.
Mm-hmm. True.
Especially if they cooperated and they put a strategy in through Alberta and through the United States to pressure British Columbia to either become sovereign or have good trade deals so we could get access to Tidewater.
Like if everything was perfect, I wouldn't be surprised if it just ends up being like this little corner over here that's left of Canada. And again, I do agree with Keith Wilson and Jeff Rath every time they say that Canada might just be too big of a country.
Well, I don't say...
I disagree.
Yeah, it is too big of a country at this time. Culturally, province to province, they're so different. You have a couple provinces that are very similar, obviously, like Alberta and Saskatchewan. But British Columbia and a lot of these city centers, like Vancouver, like Toronto, are just off in la la land. They're literally in outer space trying to dictate to the rest of the country how to run their country. A bunch of economists are shoveling money around, inflating the price of money, which is a tax on your average citizen, rather than actually building things. Canada should be able to build things because we have all the natural resources.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say even trying to take control of the rest of Canada. They are the ones in power. Like, they're the power centers and the ones that end up making the decisions for everybody else. Mm-hmm. We've mentioned it over and over again that yes, the insane asylums that are Vancouver and Victoria are insane. And unfortunately, they have that disproportionate impact upon the rest of British Columbia, for example, where most people are level-headed and slightly more sane, at least.
Yeah, but that's happening in a lot of provinces, and you should really pay attention to what's happening to your neighbor. A voting demographic took over Vancouver and a lot of Victoria, and that's where the population centers are at. Something similar is currently starting to occur in Alberta with Calgary and Edmonton. We see this with the polling for who's going to vote for independence as well. We need to fix that issue as soon as we get independence, so we don't have this progressive liberalization of a new a new Alberta as the country.
Of an independent Alberta.
Well, and also so we don't get a renew Alberta kind of constitution as well.
True.
That would be a nightmare, separating from Canada just to
go
adopt
back.
their same constitution.
Yeah. But it's not only people that want independence that are slightly upset, not very upset, with this pipeline deal and with the way that Daniel has been trying to switch around words to make it seem better than it is. It's also apparently the Liberals. Mark Nixon says, quote, "The collapse of the Liberal Party is in motion after Carney's pipeline announcement today. The only party in Canada that will deliver on a brand new pipeline is the Conservatives." No, but they can't. This could be the end of Mark Carney's rule over Canada. I would say the only ones that can actually do it is a free and independent Alberta.
Well, and we see Mark Nixon now starting to report on Alberta independence and a lot of things that are going on in Alberta, but he still holds out this federal hope for Pierre Poilievre to be the Captain Canada and save it. It's 3 years into the next election. Canada will be destroyed by then. Mark Nixon, it's time to get behind Alberta independence, and not just you. I've liked your reporting and the way it's trending, but all national conservative content creators, now is the time.
And Michael Drader, thank you so much for the
thank you.
$5 super chat, saying this was why America's electoral college was genius. Without it, 2 states and Chicago would determine who rules.
Absolutely. And it was one of the mechanisms that has really saved the United States in the long term. But there's still a lot of other mechanisms that have been corrupted. So if we adopt a similar system to that, the mechanisms of corruption are already known now. So it will be an accelerated process of kind of destroying the nation by corrupt officials and other mechanisms that are going to be put in place there. Exactly. Then this is why I really like Bruce Party's constitution. It's something new. It's unknown because nobody's ever tried it, but maybe it's too radical for people. If it is too radical, I would say go with a U.S. style constitution, 1776, before a lot of things were changed.
Exactly. Okay, now let's get into them.
And conservatives think that Canada is innovative, that we can do all of the consultations that we need, have rigorous environmental standards, and have that third leg of the stool work faster. I think what's happening here is what you saw with your previous guest, which is Mark Carney has a very divided Liberal caucus. I'm not even sure he has the support of cabinet to move the pipeline forward. And there's still a lot of uncertainty that is a lot of companies and potential investors are going to be feeling after today's announcement. And conservatives think that Canada...
Yeah, and again, I gave my take earlier, but I'm going to continue to give it because I think that's actually what's happening in the long term. In the long term, Carney wants to federalize everything. He will go the way of natural resources, but he has to do it very slowly because he doesn't have control over it yet. He's building the fundamental first layer of mechanisms he needs. There's a series of them. The big two are the 30 by 30 program and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Those will end up becoming the way to capture natural resources for the federal government away from provinces. And he said his big plan is to federalize Canada. What that means in plain words, he's going to take sovereignty away from each province. And
also, I mean, you mentioned it before as well, but we're seeing this slight shift even from mainstream media in certain cases and from Liberal politicians towards opening up the conversation about pipelines, about natural resources. So that might be an indication of, yeah, that's probably where it's going if they're trying to change public opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can somehow get rid of Poilievre, if they have a couple more floor crossers, have a vote of incompetence, he doesn't have another election for 3 years, so it's plausible. And they put a Doug Ford or a Jason Kenney in there, and then Mark Carney finally federalizes everything and starts actually going into natural resources, the non-politically engaged conservative may actually flip sides.
Mm-hmm. And also from Igor Riltsev, I think we played this one yesterday, but let's just see it again. Says, quote, "Unlike the judges do not dictate Alberta's future, the people do. We demand this independence question be put on a direct referendum this October. We don't care what the NDP leaders are crying about today," which they did. "Their outrage doesn't speak for the hardworking citizens of this province who are tired of being micromanaged."
Okay, and this was the most important clip from yesterday. It's when Danielle Smith went in front of, I think it's called Parliament in Alberta, and Absolutely fantastic statement. I think this definitely indicates she's going to put the question on the October 19th ballot. Otherwise, she would have framed it completely differently here. She's inserting that she has the power, not the judiciary, that the judiciary made the mistake. She said she's going to challenge it. But the other thing she said indicates to me she's either going to put Lukaszik's question on that October 19th ballot, or she'll just come right out and put the question on herself, which I think is the best path at this point. It's stops a lot of people from questioning different legal challenges and things like that if she takes it on herself.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we believe the decision is incorrect in law and that it's anti-democratic. We in this chamber represent all of Albertans. We are the democratically elected representatives. And when we have given the indication through legislation that we want a citizen initiative process to be permissive so that Albertans have a chance to go out, gather a petition campaign with hundreds of thousands of their fellow citizens, that they should be given the respect of having that petition validated. We don't live in a society that has judicial supremacy. We live in a society that has parliamentary and democratic supremacy. That is the reason why, as part of the Constitution, Section 33 allows for notwithstanding clause, so that when the court makes errors in law, it can always be overridden by democratically elected legislators.
Yeah, and she's bringing up the notwithstanding clause. That's going to be the mechanism she can use. I hope she does use it, but that may open other doors and other challenges as well. That being said, the real Stephen Jensen, which is one of our viewers, went to the UCP meeting yesterday. A lot of people were trying to vocalize that Danielle Smith needs to have that question on that October 19th ballot, and they were trying to play dumb. They weren't trying to address a lot of the real questions and real concerns from the Independence Caucus within the UCP. I wouldn't say caucus, but Independence members, and there's a lot of them. It's over 60% right now, and it's only going up.
I dropped something.
But that's the exact reason we need to raise our voice at these UCP meetings. So Danielle Smith not only makes statements like this, but she actually follows through on it, preferably by the end of May.
Legislatures, another avenue is to make sure that we exhaust an appeals process when we think that the judiciary has made an error. Section 33 of the Charter on Rights and Freedoms is by definition a part of the Constitution. And that means that the courts do have deference to the democratically elected members of this chamber and in chambers across the country. And from time to time, the courts make errors in their judgment, at which point we have an obligation and also a right to appeal it. And that's what we're going to do in this case.
And I like the gentleman that was sitting behind her. I've watched that clip quite a few times now, and he was shaking his head and saying yes. So it looks like she has real support from her caucus on making that statement, which is important.
And thank you so much. Hold on, Mo. There's a lot of messages. Thank you so much, Michael Drader, for the $2 super chat, but also for saying 100 likes and I'll gift 5 memberships. Smash it.
Oh,
thank you so much.
And thank you for getting a membership yourself. We really do appreciate everybody that has gotten membership to this point. We just opened them up because we had some requests.
Exactly. But now let's go into your comments, which now I can't get to some of them because there's so many. So thank you so much. Where were we? Charlie Dufault says, oh, thank you. Great to hear you liked my song. Oh, I read that one. Todd says, I know 3 Polish people now in Alberta independence movement, big supporters in our movement. Well,
yeah, a lot of people from especially Eastern Europe are going to be big supporters of Alberta independence because they've seen what happened in their own countries.
Jim says, Alberta won't vote to separate. You don't have the numbers. Retirees, NDP, New Canadians will vote to stay.
Okay, well, why are you so scared to let us have a vote? Well, you want to stop us at every single turn. If you simply let us have a vote, you unify the province. We're not going to fight it too much after that. We simply just want a vote and want democracy to go forward.
Sean says, Guy, your accent doesn't change when you become an adult, only like minor changes, like how you still have a California accent.
It can change quite a bit.
He has a weird accent.
It can change quite a bit. I've lived all over the South in the United States, as well as in Vancouver. I keep going back to Canada and living there for long periods of time. After my parents died, I left, and then I went back when I was older.
Jim says the CPC don't want Alberta to leave. Danielle Smith doesn't want Alberta to leave. Edmonton and Calgary will vote to stay in Canada.
Well, they may try, but Edmonton.
But let them try.
We don't need all of Edmonton and Calgary to vote to stay. We only need a percentage of each of those cities, and we're putting together a pretty good campaign. And I think we're going to have it in the end, and we'll see. Let democracy go forward, and we'll see how it works out.
Exactly. That's the whole point of a vote. You're asking the question and then people will answer it. All we right now we want to do is to be able to ask the question.
Well, and the Federalists are throwing a fit that Danielle Smith might put the question on there, and she's not siding with us. She's actually siding with you, and you're still throwing a fit. All we're asking is that she puts the question on that October. You don't have to keep doing that. All she has to do is put that question on that October 19th ballot, and we're going to be happy with her and continue to probably vote for her in the future.
Do you see how annoying it is? Pete says, except Thomas. And yeah, the supporters, polar supporters. Jim says, Albertans who want to leave Canada just move to the U.S. But it's not the same thing, though.
No, and the U.S., I'm telling you, I lived half my life in the U.S. Every 4 or 8 years, it can be very bipolar. Under Biden, there was a lot of authoritarian tendencies. He was trying to take away free speech. He was doing it through private industry and social media itself. So, and he was also trying to take away bodily autonomy. I'm happy with their policies under Trump right now, but you don't know what you're going to get in 2028 or 2032.
Alberta and for Independence, thank you so much for the $5 super chat saying, really enjoyed your interview with Fergus and Bruce. Thank you. Says,
thank you.
Joining today from Fort McMurray. We'll be joining you in Mexico this fall.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you. Always welcome here. And if anybody ever wants some tips about Mexico or what it's like, again, I'm from here, so I can help.
Yeah, we already escaped the country. We had to flee Vancouver. There was no hope for independence, or there wasn't even any like-minded people.
Thomas Muse says Canadian podcasters for independence plus USA podcasters exposing the Carney, Obama, etc. coalition on total stress is awesome.
Yeah, Carney, Obama, as well as Soros's kid. Soros's kid is now the one dealing out a lot of the money and making a lot of the connections. They're trying to wait out Trump so they can have the revitalization of globalism. It has collapsed in a lot of senses. I think they're trying to retool it right now and figure how they can get the rise of it again. The only way to fund it would be through Canadian natural resources. The other way to fund it was going to be through Russia. That's not turning out so well for them. So I really think they're looking at federalizing Canadian natural resources to do a lot of their globalist plans.
Pete says, what's staying in Canada for you, Jim? Asking Jim. Jim says, Danielle Smith is happy Carney is fast-tracking pipelines. CPC never fast-tracked pipelines.
No. He won't even fast-track an MOU. How long did it take to get that MOU? And then there's still multiple hurdles in the way in front of us. I can name the hurdles in BC alone, which is First Nations, David Eby, and the coastal ban on tankers. And that's just British Columbia. Then you have federal hoops we still have to jump through there.
Stephen Jensen says, are you going to cover any Tommy Robinson in London gathering today?
Yeah. Once we get into Alberta and the world, most of it's Tommy Robinson. And then when we go to RU and BLE, it's literally all Tommy Robinson. We've been a big supporter and a big following. And a lot of statements came out later in the day, which I was happy to see.
Jim says, PP doesn't want to lose another federal riding to LOLs. PP is a clown. I will concur with you on that one.
He's going to lose multiple federal ridings, and I'm sorry to say it to National Conservatives, but this is why. National Conservatives are losing faith in the country. Last year, hundreds of thousands of people fled Canada. Most of them now live in the United States or Mexico, but even more are going to flee this year because they don't see any hope for the next 3 years because Carney has a majority government. Also, if Alberta independence goes for independence, that's a lot less votes for Pierre Poilievre as well. But if Alberta independence for some reason fails, which I don't think it will, but if it does, a lot of people from Alberta are going to be fleeing to the United States as well because they're just not going to live under Carney rule.
Exactly. And hold on, where were we? Pete says interested. Okay. Because Pete asked, are you interested? Are you in Alberta, Jim? Just interested? And Jim says the retired and new Canadians will all vote to remain. Don't be so sure about that one. That voter bloc might not be as ideologically aligned with what the Liberals think as, I mean, we just saw it with, what's his name? Nate Erskine-Smith or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
So you can't rely on that one anymore as much.
Well, reread that question because I don't understand your comment.
Well, Jim said the retired and new Canadians will all vote to remain.
No, I don't think so because there's a lot of retired Canadians that are actually, they're the ones fighting the hardest for independence and they have direct access to have in-person meetings with a lot of these other groups. People are starting to wake up that he's erasing Canadian history, whether it's through the destruction of statues or it's renaming streets, renaming bridges, and just rewriting history in general through the education system and through academia. It's starting to make news. People are starting to wake up and watch independent media as well.
And Jim says Edmonton and Calgary are filled with left-wing people who will vote to remain. The separation movement is just a few people with big trucks and small PPs. Projection much?
You also have to realize this: if New Canadians are always going to vote Liberal, that did not necessarily happen with Nate in his Liberal riding, number one. But number two, before I left Canada, I had to have 4 jobs to flee. I was the only white guy working at a lot of those jobs. It was primarily all Indians. And if you talk to them, they don't even want the PR. They're using Canada in order to get into the United States. A lot of them are so disenfranchised. They used to wait to get PR. Now a lot of them are fleeing back to their country. We were talking to Nico from Quebec, and he's like, a lot of people are coming into the country, and it's only a 49% conversion rate from PR to actual citizenship. A lot of people no longer want Canadian citizenship.
Because it's not as worth it, and they realize it almost as soon as they get there, that life is almost impossible right now in Canada.
Well, and a lot of people that are getting the citizenship are waking up to the destruction of Canada under Mark Carney. And I think it's possible to persuade some of those individuals. If you vote for an independent Alberta, you're more likely to get a free system, which you have control over your own destiny, rather than a nanny state and Mark Carney lording over you.
And Pete does ask, why would you like to stay if you're Albertan, to Jim? And Charlie Defoe says, I think that Jim guy is on the wrong podcast, must be from Ontario. No, but we're happy to have the conversation. Yeah, and that is the thing that we have to be doing as well.
Yeah, and he's not a complete troll. We've had some real trolls, which we had to kick out. But
yes. Jim says, Calgary and Edmonton always vote NDP. That's almost 1 million votes alone. But Pete says, I'm a retired Albertan, Jim, and I disagree. Why am I wrong?
Well, also, have you noticed the NDP memberships? They're all fleeing the party right now. They don't like the new national leader. Ninchi cannot pitch a lot of the things he's currently pitching because it's a complete flip on what his policies were just a few months ago. And a lot of them are buying UCP memberships, or they're becoming politically homeless right now. Let's go into the next section if we can, though.
Okay.
We'll try to get to as many comments as we can today. We do have a lot of comments. If you want to guarantee it to be read, you can super chat. But again, we try to read all of them.
Yes. Alberta Politics, right? Yes.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Well, you can get it. You can do the last super chat there before we get into it.
Well, it wasn't a super chat. It was just from Jim, kind of a question.
Okay.
Jim says, all you have is Red Deer and a few small towns that will vote to separate, and says retirees want to keep their CPP. The whole point with the CPP is that a lot of retirees have realized what has actually been happening with the CPP and the giant joke that it has become, especially with CPP investments, but also how little they are actually receiving instead, comparatively to number one, other countries, but also comparatively comparing it to if they had just saved up and invested it themselves.
Well, $9 billion goes into it federally, and we get $6 billion back. We're actually floating the entire Canadian CPP. If Alberta leaves, it's the rest of Canada that's going to have to worry, not Alberta, because we can back ours with natural resources, and we can also take care of our retirees, because that's one of the fundamental values Alberta has that Canada simply doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, that Canada lost, I would say. Okay, now let's go into the stories, just because I wanted to cover that one. Energy Media says, quote, Dwayne Bratt says Daniel Smith is caught between federalism and separatism and may soon have to choose. That's a very confusing argument to be making. And it's not, though. And we've outlined why before, but we'll watch the clip and then I'll outline it again.
Well, they want to try to pigeonhole her between a rock and a hard place, but it's not. The Federalists want to be the hard side and hard-nosed to make her pick their side. On the independent side, we simply want her to follow democracy, and that's why this isn't the actual paradigm Danielle exists within right now.
If she makes it a government referendum, what she is essentially saying is that, on the one hand, I have demonstrated that Canada can work by negotiating with Mark Carney, the removal of what she calls the 9 bad laws, putting the conditions in place for a pipeline to be built. And on the other, I'm going to put a referendum question forward because clearly Canada can't work and Alberta needs out. I don't know how you reconcile those two. If she makes it a government...
Okay, I'm going to explain exactly how that's reconciled. Number one, she's going to try to get pipeline deals, even though I've said no deals until after independence. She's attempting to build a safety net. She's stated that she's a federalist, but she needs to unite both the national conservatives within inside Alberta as well as the independents. The only way to do that is through democracy and a vote for democracy. So she's not saying Alberta needs to separate Canada. She's putting the question on there because she wants to see democracy go forward and unite the province, and in turn possibly unite independence voters back with the National Conservative Party. Independence people will continue to vote for Smith as long as that question is on there, and I think she knows that at this point. We've made it very clear we're not quite as hard-nosed as the other side.
And again, she can just continue to say she doesn't have to pick a side, really. She can continue to say, I'm upholding democracy because 700,000 Albertans want this question put on the ballot, and I want to be able to answer it, for them to be able to answer it and have their voices heard as well. Again, she doesn't have to pick. They're obfuscating and saying, oh, she has to pick. But no, she doesn't. She can just say, I'm continuing to be the premier, continuing to try to get what's best for Alberta, but at the same time, I also want to uphold democracy through a system that was put in by my predecessor, Carney, for the citizens to have their voices heard.
And if she is trying to make a run at Pierre Poilievre's position one day, or position herself for that position one day, being able to uphold democracy, the rest of conservatives in Canada are seeing that, especially with all the floor crossers with Mark Carney. Democracy has died in Canada, but it still lives in Alberta if this vote goes forward. And I think that's what she's about to show.
Mm-hmm. But Scott Robertson also says, quote, Liberal MP Talib Nur Mohammed defends Ottawa, Alberta MOU. If you listen to what Avi Lewis says and you listen to Pierre Poilievre, one is saying we've gone too far, one is saying we've not done enough.
Do you hope that this pipeline gets built? Look, I'm a big believer in making sure that things follow their process. Whatever happens at the end of the day, if it has followed a process that has gone exactly as I've articulated, that Indigenous communities are part of the solution, that British Columbia is part of the solution, that there is a private sector proponent, that we have met the environmental standards that are required. Whatever happens at the end of the day, I will be proud to support so long as it follows that process. If somebody said to me, as Pierre Poilievre would like us to do, we're going to build a pipeline, not care about Indigenous communities, not care about BC, not care about environmental protections, I'd say absolutely not. Okay. But if you listen to what Avi Lewis said and you listen to Pierre Poilievre, one is saying we've gone too far, one is saying we're not doing enough. You know, this is, I believe, the just right approach, dealing with where we are in this moment, fighting the fight against climate change, while also making sure Canada is a proactive player in ensuring the world has stability.
And pause it just for a second. Oh, that's the end of the clip. That's good. But making all those concessions, the pipeline is not even profitable at that point, and there's no private industry money going to come in, or it's very unlikely. And this is why, to this day, the U.S. is still the most likely partner, because he's already pre-approved everything going down south. Even though we need to diversify to the coast, we can't even work cooperatively with inside of the country.
But also, he literally just made another good argument for Alberta to become independent. Yeah. You get rid of all of that. You get rid of all of what Canada wants to do and BC wants to do. You get to actually be able to be a productive a productive country, and not a province held down by all the restrictions coming from up on high in the federal government.
Well, it's not just about building a pipeline. We have to build the pipeline and then be competitive on the open market with the price of the oil. Yeah. And with all those hoops, it's just going to be impossible. We're going to be at a net negative by the time all that goes down, and we're pigeonholing ourselves for future natural resource projects with all these strings that are now going to have to be attached to them all.
But it's also not like oil executives haven't already said that a lot of the reasons why they haven't continued to invest in Canada is because of the restrictions that they continue to place and how hard it is to get anything done, even though the promises do continue to flow.
Well, and again, I think Carney knows that. He attaches all these strings. There's going to be no real private investment coming in, and then he's going to back it with federal dollars once he has control over a lot of the projects and he federalizes a lot of the natural resources.
Cole Hagan says, quote, more than 700,000 Albertans signed a petition for a referendum. Disenfranchising those voters won't go over well. Alberta should remain in Canada. Canada should work for Alberta. Denying Albertans a vote is not the way to achieve that. I agree with that last point.
Well, I think the pipeline helps, but not if there's no referendum in the first place. So after this last week, the main go-to talking point has been, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll refer to someone who is a lawyer, talking about the fact that, the court that decided that the petition for the referendum would be quashed. And in doing that, Dr. Newman at the University of Saskatchewan, my home school, said that they acted too hasty in doing that, and that the duty to consult applies only to executive action, not legislative action or democratic action like hosting a referendum. Now, I think that's interesting for a few few reasons, because in a Supreme Court ruling in 2018, we found exactly that the duty of consult only applies to executive actions. Now, if we consider where things are at, between the Remain and Leave petitions, there's 700,000 Albertans who have signed a petition to have a referendum. Right. Now, I personally think that Alberta belongs in Canada and that Canada should work for Alberta, but we can't get to that point in that conversation if we disenfranchise those 700,000 voters.
That man has to learn to breathe.
Well, he did a fantastic job, and I think he was expecting to get cut off by the anchor there, because he did a great job at actually exposing a lot of the flaws in the decision. Jeff Rath did the same thing the other day. Yeah. So we are managing to even get our side and our opinion on why the ruling was corrupt into the mainstream media. On top of that, we have the entire independent media screaming at the top of our lungs the injustice that it's going down in Alberta right now.
And also the little question that they had there, say, asking if this new pipeline would quell separatist sentiments. And no, because that's the whole point. The whole point is that it's still under the federal government. It's still under the same restrictions that have continued to quash productivity within Alberta. Okay. Mark Nixon says, quote, Fred Delray thinks conservatives are celebrating. No, we're watching the scam. The pipeline is the bait. Carbon capture is the payday. Canada may never get a pipeline, but you can't bet Carney's net zero friends will get their taxpayer-funded carbon capture facility.
The Conservatives say essentially nothing's changed here, which is, I don't know if that makes life difficult for Daniel Smith in Alberta, because if there's a proponent by Canada Day, clearly something's changed.
Look, it's very, very hard to be a Conservative messaging on this right now. It's like Mark Carney, the day he's elected, should have grabbed a shovel and started digging that pipeline. Why didn't he get it done then? So it's very challenging.
On this or all things?
For all things. He should have been in every province digging something. It's tough when you have a Liberal Prime Minister.
And he is, right from day one, he is. But what he is doing from day one is federalizing first and slow rolling these natural resource projects. So by the time his federalization is done, it's going to fill federal coffers, not provincial coffers.
Mm-hmm. They're acting like a Conservative trying to build big
for both
projects.
parties.
It is. Well, it seems to be, look, Liberals seem to just suck it up and go with it. You can go left, right, they're just happy to be in power. But ideologically, look, he's getting things done. If this happens, a lot of Albertan Conservatives, this is what they've been asking for. This is what they wanted. So this is, politically, it's one of those things where I think Poilievre is probably best. He could have just taken today off. He didn't have to weigh into this.
Well,
when you can leave it there, and he's not getting things done. And the issue is, with all these strings attached and every increased cost, what happens? Wages get repressed for the actual workers on the line, and massive amounts of immigrants are being brought in to work those jobs as well. So what's the benefit to the citizens of Alberta with all these extra strings attached? What, repressed wages and less jobs?
Steven Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, saying, love Bruce Party interview, picture sent. I use my new email account if you want to update your records. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
And I did see, I also got your email saying that you changed it. So thank you for updating us on that as well.
Well,
but
and I will say, with the Bruce Party interview, we dived deep into his constitutional proposal. We left almost all other questions out except for a little bit of an introduction, and it was about an hour. Mm-hmm. So we were able to get into some points that he actually said he needed to work on, and I appreciated those answers as well. But again, I favor Bruce Party's constitution over the others. The problem is, I think the Renew Alberta one, a lot of people that don't want to leave Canada are going to vote out of spite for that thing. So it's going to be interesting what happens once we get to a constitutional conference. Thank you. I was losing my words there.
Now we'll go into your comments, and then we'll head over into Alberta Personalities. Todd says, isn't voting for a party, this isn't voting for a party, it's voting for independence. There's a big difference. Yes. Sean says, that's going to be a heck of a road around that. And hold on. Jim says, even most conservative voters want to remain. Again, we'll get into Jim's thing stuff in a bit, but Justin GP says, because Justin GP is a member, says...
Well, hold on. Well, we're going to address that point. He says most conservative voters want to stay. And, well, most conservative voters, or a large portion of conservative voters that you're talking about, want a better deal with Canada, but that means a yes vote. So... That's how we're going to get those voters to vote yes on October 19th. And we're going to use different strategies, especially in Alberta and, in Calgary and Edmonton.
Sorry, I'm going through the member messages. Jessica P says, hello, folks. Joined late, was handing out APP flyers. Thank you.
Fantastic.
For working. Still working hard. Again, Jessica P was canvassing, now handing out flyers. Michael Drader says 67 more likes. Again, if we get to 100 likes, Michael Drader said he'd get 5 memberships.
So everybody give us a like if you can. We really do appreciate it. And also, once we get to 100 likes, I noticed the algorithm really pushes us out the next day to a new audience because our subscriber base goes up, which is important if we want to try to shift some people to October 19th. We don't just want to talk to an echo chamber every episode. We want to try to increase the people that are watching from all sides.
Justin GP says, does that pipeline come with more representation, Senate and Parliament, less transfer payments, no buyback program, etc., etc.? No. And exactly, that's the whole point. And we've been saying since the beginning when we started talking about Alberta independence that it's not just about the economic side. It's not just about the pipelines. It's not just about production, but also a lot of it has to do with the culture and the way of life within Alberta and a myriad of other things. And as you mentioned, the representation as well. So just by throwing out pipelines and saying, there, I did it, and it'll be done at some point, it'll get built, is not enough.
Well, and a lot of people don't talk about it, but
nothing will be enough.
People see the destruction of the moral foundation of Canada. It no longer has a non-moving moral foundation. The government's trying to give it from on high, and they're constantly trying to shift it. This became very apparent to most Canadians during the Jibby Jab era, and it's continued on. And that's how they thought they were going to get these progressive policies in. But there's one province standing up and saying, no more. We have a non-moving moral foundation, and we're not going the direction of Canada.
Michael Trader says, only 46 likes, people, up to 51 now. So thank you everybody that did like it. From there, let me read some RUMBLE ones or just come over to say hi. Rusty says, anyone else see how the COVID fraud is heating up in the States? Fauci lied and manipulated the data. This eventually lands at the feet of Kenny, Smith, and the AHS, premeditated ending of life, coercion, and fraud.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting factors in the United States because there were different legal pathways that were left open for lawsuits, where in Canada, the door was shut pretty firm. I mean, it's open a crack for a case here or there, but in the United States, there can be real precedents set there.
And Pete says Quebec has their own CPP and it's doing just fine. Not to mention you can move anywhere and still get your CPP. Yeah.
Well, we watched a Quebecer talk in Alberta about their CPP, and they own a lot of the real estate within Alberta itself, much more than the Albertan government does itself.
Mm-hmm. And Sky Pilot exactly says a pipeline ending at a port with a tanker ban.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the ironic part of all of this as well.
Well, and then what happens when you get it there and you started building it and then you can't get it off the coast? Oh, we just need to add a few more regulations. Mm-hmm. We need to bring that carbon tax up to $160 a barrel now.
And David Eby has already started to say that he wants to contest it from BC. So
yeah. You can't trust,
that was the whole point.
You can't trust building a pipeline through BC because at any point you have to jump through more hoops, more hoops, and more hoops. Even on completion, they may give you more hoops. At least with the United States, it's wide open. Yeah, you have to sell it at a cheaper price, but there are no regulations to jump through there.
Mm-hmm. Sean says, Guy, because the basis of culture of the first Canadians were American loyalists who lost and went to Canada. They implemented a monarchy like the UK for Canada, which they can rule over others.
Yeah,
and that is the true history of it. But
yeah, we need to break free now.
Exactly. Now people have realized the complete opposite as well.
Now is the time.
Pete says needs to go deep water, no pipelines for now. Exactly, no pipelines until Alberta is independent, and no falling for the little trick that we already knew was coming from and will continue to come from the federal government. I will say. Pete says 2 pipelines to deep water, 1 crude, 1 bitumen for road construction. Asia wants both. Mm-hmm. James
there's potentially enough money and enough leverage for Alberta to play ball with BC to have a one-time fee. Yeah, it would be a very high fee for a pipeline to go to the coast there, but not having a reoccurring payment to British Columbia so you can keep all the profits for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Jim says Alberta brought in a lot of new Canadians under the Conservatives and UCP. They don't want to leave Canada either. Retirees, new Canadians, NDP voters, left-wingers, young voters, and even UCP voters don't want to leave, which is why we're going to start talking to them as well.
Yeah.
And believe me, once they actually get the clear picture, not just the drivel from mainstream media, which is subsidized by the federal government, I'm sure a lot of them would like to hear the arguments to leave just to even know them, and some of them will change their mind.
Well, and Pierre Poilievre, honestly, he did a lot of the work for us. Young men are ready to vote for independence. And once that question is actually on the ballot and it's a reality, because their minds have been so broken, they don't believe in politics. But once they see a vote for independence is an actual possibility, you're going to see them come out in mass. They know Poilievre can't enact change in a timely manner, and he can't enact change on the extent that Alberta independence can.
And Pete says, is Canada working in your opinion, Jim? And I would love to have that question answered as well. Let us know, Jim, why it's good to stay in Canada.
Yeah, like we've already left Canada. We voted for our own independence. So when we talk about leaving Canada, it's something that we've already done. Now, if there was something like Alberta independence before we left with a critical mass of people that were going to stand up together, I would have stayed.
True. Thomas Muse says, anyone that was with us in Ottawa with the convoy knows that Poilievre had shares in the jobs companies, just saying.
There was a lot.
I've been saying a lot of things about PP for a long time. You've been a little bit nicer to him in overall.
Yeah, well, I prefer Pierre Poilievre than a Doug Ford or a Jason Kenney, who they want to replace him with now, because at least he's calling out National Canada and Mark Carney, which ultimately helps Alberta independence. If it's a Doug Ford or a Jason Kenney in there, they're not going to say a word. It's going to be uniparty through and through.
That's weird. I can see, that's interesting, shenanigans. I can literally see the likes counter glitching live. I can see him trying to move and it doesn't move. Not that it really matters, but we were saying that there's been some interesting things going on with streams lately. Jim says, Carney is fast-tracking pipelines. Fast-tracking in Canadian terms, which doesn't mean, it's not the same word, doesn't mean the same thing that fast-tracking actually means. They love to obfuscate.
Hold on, fast-tracking? The first article we shown, or sorry, the second article we shown, you don't still have it up, was the UAE building a complete pipeline within a year because of what's happening with Iran right now, so they can go around the Strait of Hormuz. It's taking Canada, 9 years, a bunch of MOUs. Trump goes in there, and he goes from no deal to deal when he goes to talk with China. China's now going to be buying oil from Alaska. What does Canada do? 10 years later, maybe we'll give you some oil. But also no, we're not going to give you oil, Japan, because we have to give it to China.
But also in that same thing we showed, it said that it's going also to Asian markets. So it's literally going all the way around Canada as well.
Yeah.
And by the time that's done, Canada will be starting to make consultations with First Nations, probably, and with David Eby. Liam P. Mooney says, Ontarian here, hello, says, thanks for talking about these issues from your point of view in public. I am a nationalist that believes in a united Canada, and I'm wondering from your points of views, what are the characteristics and traits of Alberta nationalism? If Alberta wants its own country, what's the culture?
Oh, what's the culture? Yeah, well, first of all, it's a strong, I think, it's a strong Christian moral foundation, more than anywhere else in Canada. And I think that's one of the big reasons we're seeing the uprise within Alberta. It's a non-moving Christian moral foundation. And a lot of people that have seen the government over the last few years, especially with the jibby jab era, believe there's truly a war on Christianity with the 200 church burnings that have gone on, the taking away of nonprofit status if churches speak up against abortion, and a number of other things. And when you take away Christianity from the society, the government now is dictating the morals, and they're constantly shifting them based upon their moral agenda. Also, the culture of Alberta is far more like, I would say, a Texas than it is a lot of the rest of Canada, other than Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan and Alberta have, I believe, a shared culture overall.
I would say other than the rest of current Canada.
Well, and I appreciate your question, even though you are a nationalist. We're trying to convince nationalists, so we appreciate the questions.
And also within Alberta, I do think that, yes, the cultural issue is a big thing, but it's also because they've retained a lot of the things of what Canada used to be. A lot of people still live with rose-tinted glasses, maybe because their situation isn't as bad as it is for many others within Canada. But within Alberta, they still retain some of what used to be important to most Canadians that they've now forgotten. And the thing is, unfortunately, a lot of people, and I see a lot of nationalist commentary as well, talking about a Canada that no longer exists. So when they don't understand why Alberta wants to leave, it's because Alberta has noticed that a lot of things, going from free speech to a strong, solid moral foundation, not coming from the government, but coming from elsewhere, usually church or Christianity, has been gone from the rest of Canada for the longest time. And they've been trying to single-handedly uphold it, aside from the fact that they're not properly represented, aside from the fact that all of the equalization payments essentially just come out of their pockets, and aside from the fact that most things within Canada are still being paid through Alberta.
Well, and you can also just look at the Calgary Stampede. There's a sense of culture there that's very distinct to to Alberta and Saskatchewan. And on top of that, Canada Day is being erased across Canada. We used to live in British Columbia, and they just absolutely cancel them. Alberta is something that wants to save Western values in general. You see Western values in Canada dying, in the UK dying. It's starting to have a revitalization, especially today and with Reform UK. But the EU, Western values are dying. They're turning their back. These globalist governments are turning their back on Western values. Alberta actually wants to save Western values. And that's the thing. You don't have to stay part of Canada to save Western values. Actually, you have to leave because Canada wants to crush the idea of Western values. They're stepping further and further into socialism and aligning far more with China than with freedom of speech and a lot of other things that used to be core fundamental components of what Western culture was.
You can just look at Bill C-22 and Bill C-9 and understand that Albertans do value free speech, the ones that at least want to separate from the insanity that is coming from the federal government to quash free speech.
Yeah.
For just as one example.
Yeah, so I hope that gives you a little bit of an understanding why Albertans do want independence from Canada. It's not the old Canada, or it's not the Canada that Canada used to be anymore. It's completely changed, and Albertans see that. Okay.
Hold on, because Todd also...
We'll go 3 more questions, and then we'll go into Alberta personalities if we can.
Yes. Let me go to the member ones. Where are we? I get lost. Justin GP says...
Oh, and one other moment. We do have memberships, and we're going to get better at reading members' questions when they do come up. We're just starting to get used to it.
Justin GP says, I made a perfect cartoon of my ex that addresses this new pipeline. No tankers, future carbon tax, blockades, a donkey chasing a carrot, and investors walking away. Michael Drader says 65 likes, 35 to go. Jesse GP says no, not yet. Just logged on and started watching. Okay. Okay, you're talking to each other. Hold on. Let me go to these ones. Oh, Justin GP answers the culture question. Culture, freedom, hard work. And we forgot to mention that one, but that was a very important component. Long hours, helping hands to those who truly need it. Hunting, fishing, naturalist. And we say you betcha more than we say a. Michael Drader says, oh no. Michael Drader says Alberta culture includes being gritty, hardworking, self-determining, and limited amounts of government overreach. And they do value that limited government as well.
Well, and if you're thinking like Canadian culture is still there, and maybe you don't live in a major city, because this question did come from a nationalist that live in other parts of Canada, what I recommend doing is going to the closest major city, if it's like Toronto or Vancouver or something like that. And just remember when you went there, even 10 years ago, how completely different it was and what it has become today. All of Canada is slowly going to become that if we allow it to happen. We're not going to go quietly into the night. We're going to fight for independence here.
And Alberta and for Independence says Eastern Canada was built by loyalists to the British Crown. Western Canada was built by people trying to get away from the British Crown, looking for freedom combined with American ranching culture.
Okay, let's go into Alberta personalities if we can.
Wait, but Todd had a good one about this. I'm trying to look for the Todd answer. If I can't find it, then I'll read it later. But it was about the culture as well. Okay, I'll read it in a bit, Todd. But yes, let's go into Alberta personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Why is this a personality?
This is an Alberta personality, and I've been saying for a long time, every time he opens his mouth, he helps us out and he pushes more people towards independence. And we had a nationalist within the comments earlier saying we have a lot of NDP voters in the city and they're going to vote against independence. If Ninshi keeps doing things like this, no, they're going to vote for independence. So what I say is go Ninshi.
I was waiting for you to like show who it was, but nah, Ninshi says Frogface. Alberta can provide safe, clean energy while fighting climate change with smart leadership, ensuring stability.
And these are oxymorons he's talking about. You're trying to do both. And a lot of these policies weren't his policies just a few months ago. So do you think you're going to actually keep voters like this? They're going to see you for what you are. You're an absolute fraud. There's big talk that he's going to be replaced. But until he is replaced, I say let him keep opening his mouth.
He is an absolute frog. The better way to support Alberta and Canada energy industries for jobs now and well into the future. Let's see what he says.
Make no mistake, we stand at an exciting moment for Alberta and for Alberta energy. We have the opportunity to provide the world with safe, clean, effective energy while meaningfully combating climate change. It can be done. But for that to happen, we need smart, thoughtful, deft leadership. But there's two things you need to know about it. The first is, after 7 long years of UCP government and fighting, we're back at the starting line. We're back exactly where Rachel Notley left us in terms of a deal with the federal government. We wasted 7 years.
Pause it.
And we haven't advanced.
We're not exactly where we were. We have pre-approved pipelines from the United States. We have the federal government holding us back on in every sector, which is natural resources. And we have independence rising. So we're going to be able to take control of our destiny. So we are in a much different place now, Ninchi.
1 mile of oil or gas pipelines out of Alberta to Tidewater in those 7 years because the UCP wanted to fight instead of actually win. But the second thing to know is the Premier's going to take a victory lap on this. She's going to be like, we won. It's a good step forward. It's like scoring a goal in the second period. There's a lot of game left to play. And for that game to play correctly, we need...
First he says we're right back at the beginning. We haven't made a single step forward. Then he says, good job. She did something. She scored a goal. Which one isn't there? Now, I don't necessarily like the MOU she signed, but according to Ninchi, he's kind of contradicting himself here.
Need a thoughtful government that knows how to get stuff done and knows how to get stuff built. And of course, this is the first premier in Alberta history to face a motion of non-confidence from all First Nations in Alberta. How do you repair that relationship? How do you go forward in an open-hearted...
Sorry to keep interrupting you there, Ninchi. A vote of non-confidence from all elites. 46% are voting for independence. And maybe he doesn't...
Within the First Nations.
Maybe he doesn't know that. That's the highest demographic. And his voter base is actually emptying out right now. A lot of them are moving over to the UCP. He was actually called out on that on the mainstream media. We showed it the other day.
And he didn't know how to respond to that one either. So now he has to put things out like this.
Open-minded way, looking for win-wins. When you spent 7 years fighting and dividing and getting people angry, how do you move forward? Let's remember that Conservatives, for all their talk, in the last 75 years have not built 1 mile of oil pipeline to Tidewater. You Democrats got it done. And we can continue to get it done. I encourage you all to visit albertandp.ca. We call it Building Alberta's Energy Future.
Okay, you can leave it. You can leave it there.
I encourage you to go there too and see all the lies.
I encourage you to go there and leave comments. Talking about Alberta.
They probably don't have their
Alberta independence.
And hold on.
And one more. This one's actually much better. So
yeah. Oh, Nico Lagan. Nico Lagan says, quote, whether you like me or hate me is irrelevant. The second we argue with each other, they win.
And this is a content creator actually from Quebec. We interviewed him yesterday.
Nico Lagan, yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to release the interview tomorrow, but we were able to hopefully start a dialogue between the East and West. He has a regular show with Jason Levine every couple of weeks where they do a new episode, trying to open up that conversation as well. So I really appreciate the work he's doing for independence, not just in Alberta, but also in Quebec, and starting a dialogue in other provinces as well.
That show is called East Meets West.
He recently interviewed Pat King, and it was an interesting interview. I thought I would show a little bit of it.
Yeah, it says love him or hate him. Pat King is right about this one.
Whether you like me or hate me is irrelevant. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. But the second that we start arguing with each other, they win. People on the left don't appreciate my opinion. But at the same time, they are starting to see that cases such as ours are being used against them. Even liberal-minded people are reaching out going, yeah, this is wrong. I don't like you, but this is still a waste of taxpayers' dollars. Whether I agree with the left's opinions is moot. If they're arrested and charged with these kind of crimes, that is a direct violation of your charter rights for freedom of speech, freedom of protest, and freedom of assembly. I would still advocate for the left if this happened to them. And I have. The left needs to start advocating for the right. Oh, wait a minute. All right, I think we took this a little too far. And the government is moving further and further upfield while we're still back at the 10-yard line arguing over left and right ideas. We can both have differences of opinions, but know that for the greater good of the people, this is wrong.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And I will say, he was given minor sentences and served his time, and he was found innocent on a bunch of charges as well. And the interesting thing is they're trying to recharge him, and they want to give him 5 years in prison. Not only that, but set a precedent with his case. So if anybody's protesting in public in very minor ways, that they're going to be able to have mandatory minimums of 2 years. So that's going to affect everybody. So a lot of people from the left are actually starting to speak up now because they realize.
Okay, we'll go into a little bit more of your comments and then into Alberta's Canada.
And if you can hit the like button, please do so. I don't think we've ever gotten to 100 likes live. We've gotten to it the next day live. So
that would be cool. Pete says the demographics may or may not be on our side. Oh, can you bring me my other soda?
What?
Can you bring me my root beer?
Yeah.
Thank you. I ran out of energy drink, so now I need root beer. To stay up. Hold on. Thank you. Why are you here? I don't want to show, you can't show brands on YouTube. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Thank you. Okay, where were we? Sorry for that interruption. Let me move it there. Where were we? Pete says the demographics may or may not be on our side, so what should we do? Give up on our beliefs? Exactly, no. And again, I think the more we speak to each other and we speak to those that disagree or that do think that staying within Canada is the best idea and properly explain, calmly explain with the actual points that are what drives us, I think the better the conversation will get and maybe the more understanding, even not agreement, but the more understanding we might reach as well. Liam P. Mooney says, I would agree with a key distinction being mindset between the USA and Canada. Jim says you can buy your way into the U.S. under Trumpy. Again,
yeah, but
most, I mean, not even us, but most people don't want to become the 51st state because they understand the errors within the U.S. as well, and the opportunity that an independent Alberta, the founding of a nation, the birth of a nation, can give to people to get back on the right course and chart a new course as well.
Well, and again, I lived half my life in Canada, half in the United States. I now live in Mexico. That being said, the United States can have glimmers of greatness under certain leadership, but very often it's being destroyed lately. And it's nice to see conservative populism kind of arise under Trump. But even conservatives under like George Bush had forever wars and things like that. So the United States isn't always the best, and you definitely don't want to have be subject to a bipolar country where every 4 or 8 years you can get somebody that you really don't agree with and is going to implement policies that can affect your life in dramatic ways. Alberta has something special, and it's voted for conservatism for the last 93 years. I believe if we get our independence, we can forge a long-term plan for the benefit of the country.
Yes. Hold on. Let me find more people. Well, Jim says, go have your vote. That's all people are asking for.
That's all we're asking.
And I mean, we do have to make the arguments. And the ones that want to remain in Canada should also be making the arguments to remain in Canada. Most of them really can't. But this is the point in time before a referendum vote to have those two campaigns going at the same time and having those discussions as well. So the only thing that's important right now is even having the ability to have the vote, which a lot of people that want Alberta to remain in Canada don't want to happen.
Well, that's all we're asking for, and we try to use the legal pathways put before us, but we keep getting blocked. And there's supposed to be a legal pathway. When Quebec wants to do it, the federal government has no problem. But when Western Canada wants to do it, it seems like there is a lot of problems.
Sean says, Liam, here's my answer. You have the Laurentian elite mindset, which is a loser mindset that is carried over by the American loyalists who left after USA independence, so I assume that. Right, Sean is from the U.S., by the way. I think he's in Oregon or Washington, one of those.
And we appreciate everybody watching from the U.S. that does support Alberta independence. Well, we may need you at some point.
I think Jim, oh no, Jim didn't leave. Jim says Carney is sitting at 45% in pollings and PP is crashing. Again, Alberta independence has separated almost fully from Pierre Poilievre because they understand that for the next 3 years and probably for the next few generations, the Conservatives can't even make a change. I mean, that is one of the reasons why we left also a few years ago, because we didn't see a change even coming through a Conservative vote or voting for really anybody else. The problem is the changes needed to actually fix Canada as a whole would take generations to actually implement.
Yeah, Carney's numbers are high, and I agree. They're probably only going to get higher, but it's not because he's becoming more popular. It's because conservatives are fleeing the country en masse. They're not fleeing in Alberta right now because of Alberta independence, so we still have a critical mass of people that can actually vote for independence, that are motivated, that have a grassroots movement here. But last year alone, you had 249,000 people leave Canada. It's going to be even more more this year as these people flee. The majority of them are conservatives that are absolutely fed up. And this causes Mark Carney's numbers to go up, up, and up. And on top of that, the immigration numbers increase his polling support as well. That's how he's able to get support in polling numbers that are constantly going up.
And hold on, Wild Rose Republic, very true here, says PP or Pierre Poilievre isn't relevant here until he supports Alberta independence, which he won't because it's not convenient for him. And he knows already he's kind of in the dumps, but it'll just further his...
He has 3 years to another federal election. I don't see how he holds on to that. I always say he would be a great leader for Canada, but Alberta still needs its independence.
Oh, and a very good point for the culture... somebody who asked about the culture is, oh no, I lost it. But faith, family, freedom.
Yeah.
And thank you to whoever put that in the chat because now I can't find it.
Yeah, what the culture of Alberta is, and it's faith, family, and freedom. And you hear this constantly repeated in Alberta independence because that's the core foundation of what we want for a future Alberta.
Freedom Train, hello, says Albertans are servicing every debt in Canada. No other province generates a surplus. They'll never take their meat hooks out of Albertan families.
Well, with this new MOU and all these new projects coming online, they're only going to service federal Canada to even a higher extent after this.
Cindy Melnick says, I want to know how much this carbon capture scam is going to cost Alberta. Productivity, number one.
It's going to cost you everything because this is the root of federalization of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cost every Albertan its future if we don't get independence now. After this point, after this October, I don't see a critical mass of people being there. I don't think we could get the vote. That's why we needed to go forward now. We may be able to survive another 6 months if we have a vote within that 6 months after October 19th. But right now we have the momentum on our side.
And Michael Drader, thank you so much for your effort and push to get us to 100 likes. Michael Drader says, sing with me. Oh, we're 3/4 there. I don't sing, clearly. And Michael Drader says, hit that like, we'll make it, I swear. Oh.
Wait, let's go into Alberta's Canada if we can.
Let me see if there's any more from members. No, Michael Drader says, Todd, thank you, comrade.
Oh, yeah. Todd, thank you, comrade.
Okay, since we're running out of time, let's go into...
Well, we're not running out of time because nobody's on after us today.
No, but you seem to be in a rush.
No, I'm not in a rush.
Okay, then should I keep reading comments?
Well, no, I want to continuously go through the thing, and then at the end, we'll try to read as many as we can.
Okay.
And between...
Let's go into Alberta's Canada, and we call it Alberta's Canada because Alberta is the only thing that's still holding up Canada, and once it becomes independent, Canada will continue to fall because it's already falling.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And again, when we get to Alberta in the world, as well as the entire Rumble RUMBLE segment, I think is dedicated to what's going on in the UK today and with Tommy Robinson. Mm-hmm. And with Reform UK having the rise over there, it was a big, big event today, and the mainstream media can no longer ignore it.
True. They're trying, but they can't. But back to Canada. CBC Watcher says, quote, Martha Hall Findlay says Carney is in error championing the Pathways Project at this point. I was one of the creators of the Pathways Project, so it's not an easy thing for me to say at this point.
So this was probably the most insightful clip of the day that I've seen, and I was shocked that she's completely changed her view on it.
You know, when we talk also about some of the concerns surrounding this, we know that pathways, a carbon price and a pipeline, they're interlinked really as far as Ottawa is concerned. We've seen that when we heard from the Prime Minister as well yesterday. You know, you put in time into creating pathways, but now you feel like that should be postponed. But you also just touched on how there's been this major shift as well in the global economy. How does this all fit in to what we're seeing unfold here?
Well, and the massive changes geopolitically as well as North America are the reasons why I have now recommended that we put a pause on the pathways, on the carbon capture and storage part of the Pathways Initiative. That would be billions of dollars, billions of taxpayer dollars. That's you and me and all your viewers. Taxpayer dollars both at the federal and provincial level, and also billions of private sector dollars going into a massive project that puts carbon into the ground, does not generate any revenue. When we put, and I do find that hard to say. I mean, I was one of the creators of the Pathways Project, and so it's not an easy thing.
You're having the creator of a lot of these green scams now coming out against them. This is absolutely crucial. I'm surprised it's not getting more media coverage. I'm hoping by Monday it probably will, but...
for me to say at this point. But when we started that project in 2020, the world was very, very different. Then we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the second one, by the way, in 2022. That started to change things in terms of global recognition of energy security issues. Then, of course, we had Donald Trump elected.
It wasn't energy, global recognition of energy security issues. It was global recognition that they effed up by adopting a lot of the green scam that would only benefit those that were pushing to implement it and not either the people or the countries that were continuing to push it.
Well, and let's not forget the pipelines that were blown up within Europe from supposedly their own allies, which is absolutely crazy. We're talking about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline there.
And that's created extraordinary North American pressures in terms of what Canada needs to do. And then, of course, just one thing after another geopolitically. And so Canada really has, we've had a wake-up call. We need to spend billions of dollars on national defense, on economic diversification, on trade infrastructure. We don't have unlimited resources in Canada. And so from my perspective, it really was, look, if we're going to spend billions of dollars on something, let's spend those billions of dollars on the things that we need more immediately. Pathways, carbon capture and storage doesn't hit that list in my view right now. It may in the future, and I take no pleasure in saying we need to put a pause on this. But we do have other priorities in Canada now, and we just don't have
leave it there. And you notice how she says, let's put a pause on this. The EU has already done this, but this is concerning. We need to get rid of these policies completely. They're trying to wait Trump out. They're trying to show cooperation, but if they get rid of a lot of the legislation and a lot of the regulations, they're not going to be able to bring it back. That's why they simply want to put a pause so they can reactivate it at any time. And again, this is why we need our independence. So these policies aren't sitting there and waiting to jump us.
Oh, Mark Nixon. Mark Nixon says, quote, "This is absolutely glorious to witness. The Liberal voter base will be turning on Mark Carney. The lefties don't like what he's doing. Let's be real. The only Conservative government will remove all of this net zero nonsense." And no, and a free and independent Alberta can remove themselves from this nonsense, but the rest of Canada, for now, it's not going to be as easy.
It doesn't matter what the Liberal voter base does. He secured a majority government for it looks like what is the next 3 years. Yeah. Like, that's going to be carnage for Canada, a Marxist carnage for Canada for 3 years there. Oh, we had 1 second.
Yes. Let me get there. I know, I was trying to get there. Sean, thank you so much for becoming a monthly member as well. Really helps. And you've been here for a while now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that is supporting us on a monthly basis. It really does help. So thank you to that.
Yes. Okay, back to.
And we will get better at prioritizing reading members' chats throughout the episodes.
True.
Now, as well as those conditions, the things that have to happen for the pipeline to get built, I think there's all sorts of challenges, other political challenges that have opened up here. And I presume the Prime Minister has thought of them, but I'm not sure how they are going to be resolved. David Eby did not mince words in that statement. And I would say that statement might be shared by people in Quebec, too, who believe that, which is where the Prime Minister has most of his power base, his political power base, who believe that the Prime Minister is kind of bending over backwards for a Premier who has asked for a lot of things and is getting...
They're not that happy now. But Pete, thank you so much for also becoming a member.
Thank you, Pete.
Yes. And hold on. Sean also says, now we'll have to read my comments. I always read your comments. And Michael Drader says, 23 more likes for free memberships, peeps. So thank you so much to Michael Drader and to everybody that has hit that like button.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you haven't hit the like button, try to get us to 100 likes if we can.
Yes, because Michael Drader will get 5 memberships, and those go to people randomly. So you might get one. And then I'll be, as Sean says, forced to read your comments.
But again, even if there is major fracturing here within the Liberal Party, he's already consolidated a majority government. Number one, there's not another major election for what seems like 3 years. Like, I don't want Alberta to go down the path Canada is for the next 3 years. I'm guessing he's not going to need more than 3 years to destroy Canada.
Getting them in a very short timeline.
1 second. Trudeau has already done a lot of the pre-work for him. He's basically set up Mark Carney for the layup of the destruction of Canada to turn it into communist China.
What does that mean then for the rest of the premiers? How much does he have to try and placate them, including David Eby and others who now say, okay, you've shown cooperative federalism works for Alberta because you're worried about them staying in the country. What about the rest of us? And I'm not sure that I know how that's going to unfold in the months ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, and we can go.
The thing is, the model, the system itself is broken. So, what can you do?
And it's been broken, but it's very obvious now with the hard pivot they're trying to do to a new system, whether that's a socialist or a much more hard-nosed communist system. And with the federalization of natural resources, those mechanisms are very apparently being set up right now. And this is why Mark Carney wants to destroy the natural resource sector, to hold it down so he can take control of it before he activates it. Not for the benefit of provinces, but for the benefit of himself. And I believe to float globalism again. There's no other piggy bank they can use other than Canadian natural resources. It was supposed to be Russia, and there's too many roadblocks for that path.
No. Yeah. And lastly, Jasmine Lane says, why is it every time liberals claim to be doing something for public safety, it's just about taking away your freedoms? Because that is the mechanism they use to take away your freedoms. And I've been saying this since we started the channel, essentially. Anytime they claim something is for the safety or security of women, children, everybody, it's to strip away your freedoms and to be able to control the population further and further.
Well, health, safety, and the climate. That's how they've been stripping freedoms for well over a decade now in all the West, not just Canada.
Well over.
You know those moments when somebody accidentally connects all of the dots for you? Take a listen to this.
I'll use the remainder of my time to plead to Meta to please do curate an environment online that is I don't know, family friendly, not just family friendly, to be honest, one that invites people to positively participate as an elected. We have so many comments on our social media that are, do not create environments that encourage positive discussion. So just want to put that out there to you.
So let's add some important context, shall we? They were in committee discussing Bill C-22, something that Meta, among many other businesses, have raised concern about when it comes to the government's lawful powers, government overreach, a surveillance state, encryption, what could go wrong? And this Liberal MP, he chose to ask one final question. And it wasn't about how do we best protect the privacy of Canadian citizens, how do we ensure that there's no government overreach that takes place here, that the proper protocols are set up. No. He took that opportunity instead to say, hey, I really want you guys to censor my constituents, especially because as a politician, sometimes people say mean things in my comment sections. And
okay, and you can leave it there. And he wasn't just asking for censorship because he's getting mean comments. This is already the game plan in the EU. One of the main mechanisms they're using is if you say anything against a politician, they go after you for hate speech, as well as they go after other political parties for speaking about immigration. In many countries, they can't even speak about that on their own platform, which seems insane to me because that's the number one issue in a lot of these EU countries, just like it is in Alberta as well as Quebec when people are polled.
Exactly. Ow. Okay. I'll read the members' comments and then the rest of the comments. Sean says, and Pete joined. Yes, thank you, Pete, for joining.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Pete says, there he goes again, superseding my equity card. And Sean says, I had to buy my equity card. That means I am wearing a dress for nothing. Michael Drader says, equity card, lol. I want to go to an NDP AGM and claim I identify as Nahid Nenshi and announce that I resigned. They would have to listen to you.
And maybe I just want to bring up a story we talked about a long time ago. A lot of Canadians don't believe, but there's a lot of feminist laws being brought into South America and Mexico. If you speak up in a business meeting or interrupt a woman in a business meeting,
this is in Brazil.
It's a criminal offense within Brazil. And in Mexico, there's very similar feminist laws. Why don't you talk about a couple of those? Because it goes into what they were saying a little bit.
Yes. So in Mexico now, they're almost about to pass a bill with no, what's it called when they revisions, with no revisions, saying that a woman can now claim that if she feels uncomfortable by the way a man addresses her or talks to her even, she can file a complaint and the man can be arrested. They're arrested, but there's different mechanisms of what they can do to him as well.
Well, and also with...
So men here have started, of course, making memes, but also saying, well, I'm just not going to say good morning to anybody. I'm not going to talk to any woman because... why would I? What's the point now?
Well, also within politics, they're saying within certain regions, only women can run. Therefore, you're going to guarantee somebody that's a woman that's going to be elected. Problem is, they're calling it the politician's wife's laws because it's all
called the wife bill.
All the politicians' wives are running for those positions, so it's already a fixed system inside a fixed system there.
So it's a way for the their husbands to stay in power by having just them be at the forefront and be elected. So it's just, again, nepotism, essentially. Pete says, and there's many other crazy ones. I can talk more about it one day, maybe.
Yeah.
Pete says, I'm getting blue hair and a nose ring. Take that. So in my woke days, I used to have a nose ring. There's a picture floating out there somewhere on the Spanish
She used
channel.
to be woke, and then she woke up, and then I started dating her.
Around
Yeah.
2015, 2016, yeah. But I had one of the bull ring nose rings. Michael Drader says, my hair is already long. That's unusual enough for an Alberta male. It was fashionable in the, 70s and 80s, I think. And then in the early 2000s.
I used to have long hair for a little bit. Actually, when
There's
we
a video
first
on-
started the channel, I
No,
had a
their channel,
picture.
yeah.
But yeah.
Pete says, don't get me started on carbon capture, Jacqueline. Sean says, the CO2 lines hurt whatever is above it. This has been shown in Iowa destroying farmland. The CO2 pipelines, says Sean. Jesse GP says, I'm a half-breed native. Did you consult me regarding this live broadcast? And all you commenters need to consult me too.
Well,
Jesse
I
GP,
figured this was the consultation, just like all the meetings that they had with the APP, Centurion Project, whatever it was. They had all kinds of meetings all around Alberta. I figured that was the consultation phase. There was plenty of Native people at a lot of those meetings, so I figured that was the consultation phase. Obviously, the judge disagreed, but I think it was ideological.
Pete says, what, Jess? We need to insult you first. That doesn't sound very nice. Oh, consult. Sorry. Justin DB says, consult, or just give me money, and that makes everything okay somehow.
Yeah.
That's really where it is.
Consult when the land's already been ceded.
Sean says, I had my local police officer come to my house because my ex-fiance who left complained about how I addressed her. Oregon isn't far behind Mexico.
Oh, wow.
No, it's not.
I didn't know.
Oregon is crazy.
Oregon, Washington, California, as well as New York. I mean, that's where they start, and they bring it across the nation. But a lot of the policies actually start from NGOs in Canada. They test them out.
Vancouver,
They
mostly.
test them out mainly in Vancouver, and then what works, they bring down to the United States.
We got to see it all.
Yeah.
Pete says, Net, I gave her my last $5. Thank you. And okay, let's go into the regular comments now. Where were we?
And the next section is going to be Alberta and the
I'll go
world.
quick.
I have one story about Tommy Robinson there, but the entire RUMBLE is committed to what's going on in the UK right now.
Freedom Train says 25 million people live east of Manitoba and they still can't figure out how to support themselves.
Yeah.
Freedom Train says if they had any pride, they would have figured that out. And the ideology, and I think, who did we talk with? With Bruce Party. We talked about how the ideology has changed so much to the point where the mechanisms of charity, aid, etc., are now just directed by and towards the government. And until we get out of that mindset, it's not going to change.
Well, once the government stops with the social safety nets, there's a need for community and church again. And once you can build that, because they're the ones supplying a lot of the support people need within the community, you're going to have people wanting to be more involved in the community and become much more politically active.
And
right
also,
now, people are disengaged because the government is doing everything and they're doing it very corruptly.
And also, Pete, really good comment, says morality is a second victim to a loss of pride. Real pride, not rainbow pride.
Yeah.
Freedom says Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes are sitting on trillions worth of resources. No excuses. They can pay for their own bills. And yes, they are.
Yeah.
Hold on. Where are we? Dale Robinson says Annex broke up the Buffalo Territory forced by Ottawa Mafia. The West was always meant to be a controlled supply line.
Yeah, this is our
With no say.
This is our opportunity to break free, and hopefully we can set the example for Saskatchewan. But they have a few barriers standing in their way that Alberta didn't have. Like, we're in a very special moment in time right now.
Pete says if someone wants to give Alberta $57 billion a year, we'll put the oil on hold and go on vacation. But that's not how economies work.
Yeah.
Well, that's how a lot of socialists want to do it, except that they eventually do run out of money. And that's when we see socialism fail each and every time.
I almost feel like Alberta just needs to turn off the freaking pipelines and just have everybody suffer for a little while. Because that's what Quebec does. Quebec has all kinds of natural resources. They don't access them because they want their welfare check. That welfare check stops coming to the federal government and everybody else. People are going to say, okay, no more carbon tax.
And exactly, Freedom Train says Alberta has never consented to the equalization formula.
No.
And now they're saying enough. Pete
Well,
says,
when Danielle Smith makes these MOUs and agrees to all these regulations and hoops she jumps through, that's almost like she is submitting to that. And that's why it's a bad idea to do.
Pete says, we haven't consented on anything since the beginning. We have forgotten that we say no to. Exactly. Sean says, well, let's be honest. Alberta and Saskatchewan were annexed to connect a railroad across the country, if we are being honest. Oh, Sean. Dollar Robinson says 1980s NEP was written into Constitution, and to amend it, it needs 7 out of 10 provinces to agree, and Quebec has a veto. Therefore, independence is the only way to freedom.
Yeah. And let's go through more comments, and then we're going to go into Alberta and the world if we can. And then at the end, we'll read most of the comments if we can get to them.
Let me go to the members' ones. Michael Drader says, I didn't start growing my hair out until 5 years ago when hairdressers and barbershops had their restrictions. I can no longer donate my blood, so I donate my hair.
Well, I think that's why I started growing my hair out as well. Yeah.
He did not trust me. I did a good job.
No.
Stephen Johnson says, I don't mind a woman having a strong mind, but they think differently, nurturing nature, and do not deal well in the real world international setting. Margaret Thatcher, we know, was one of the exceptions. I would say she was the only exception. I am even stronger on this than you are.
She says no women shouldn't be able to run for politics. Yeah. I disagree with that, but
not in politics, in positions of
but I also, I don't go that far, but I do realize women will always vote for security rather than freedom and independence. And that's not a good direction for our country. That's why you're going to get something like Canada. This is why I want to see one family, one vote, and only a family that has a child. No child, no vote, because as soon as you have a child, you're invested in the long-term vision of the future and what happens with the next generation.
But in that one, I do also kind of disagree with you, because I think with the voting stuff, not to get too deep into the weeds into it, but with the voting stuff, I do think it should come after some sort of service to the country or for the country, either military or social service or some kind of service that you do for the country, and that you understand that you have some sort of vested stake within the country and the future. Pete says, when I joined the forces, I had hair down to my elbows. Day 1 boot camp, Velcro. Sean says, they have quite literally been paid off. Michael Drader says, 19 more likes. Call your friends. Sean says,
I don't think we're going to get there. That being said, I do appreciate everybody that did hit the like button today, because I think this is the most likes we've had on a live stream. So
Sean asks, did Alberta consult the MMW G2SLGBTQQIIAA plus community if it was okay to separate? No, I'm sure even some people there would want to separate as well.
And this is the thing. If we would have consulted First Nations, they would have said, well, did you consult this other specialty group? What about this specialty group? Yeah. Everybody would have had a lawsuit. One way or another, they were going to try to block this thing.
Yeah, people with disabilities, people with migrants, the Latino community. I wasn't consulted. Sean says, Todd, it's as transparent as Wonder Woman's jet. Pete says, my 4.5 years I will never forget. Learned my trade there, voluntarily released, wrote my provincials, and spent 30 years as an installation and maintenance electrician. Sean says, repeal the 19th or whatever Canada calls it. Sean says, Nat is a Starship Troopers person.
Yeah.
I never watched it. What does that mean?
Service equals citizenship.
Yes. Pete says, 17 years in an old boot camp or drill sergeant, told someone to teach me how to remove peach fuzz too.
Well, and the first Starship Troopers was great. They got progressively worse after that, a lot worse.
No idea.
Okay,
Before my time.
Let's go into Alberta and the world. And the first story is the best story in the section, but we're going to have a bunch of stories on RUMBLE that go over that as well.
Yes. That's the longest one. But yes, starting with, as a lot of you were mentioning, Mark Nixon says, quote, Tommy Robinson provides a message. The same can be said for Canada. Conservatives lost by 2.45% of the vote. Only 43% of Canadian youth aged 18 to 25 voted. 76% aged 55 and over voted. If the Canadian youth want change, they need to show up. And I've been saying this over and over again too.
Britain is starting to wake up, which is fantastic to see. I really hope Nigel Farage isn't the right-wing populist skin suit they're trying to put on to do it, because he has changed a lot of the fundamental values that he had in the founding of that country. That being said, he is far better than any other party that's there except for
Restore Britain.
Restore Britain, yeah. Restore Britain is actually the party I like the best. They just didn't run in enough seats this time.
The Rupert Loeb.
Yeah, Rupert Loeb.
Are you watching Keir Starmer? This crowd, that helicopter goes from here for miles. Today, I want to ask you all something. Are you ready for the Battle of Britain? 2029, we have an election. We're not asking anyone to go out and fight, but this is the most important moment in our generation, if we don't send a message in our next election, if you don't register to vote, if you don't get involved, if you don't become activists, we are going to lose our country forever. Apathy has led to a government like Keir Starmer. He was elected off 9 million votes. 20 million of us didn't vote. If we stood up and said how we thought of the ballot box, we wouldn't have had open borders. I'm not going to tell you which political party you need to join. We're a cultural movement. I'm going to tell you that you have to join a political party. I don't care if it's Reform, if it's Advance, or it's Restore, or it's a Conservative party. We have to locally get involved in politics, all right? Who do you want it to be? You know what you're going to say? I think I can hear Restore. We cannot go home from this event and go back to sleep. We can't, okay? Locally, we have to get organised. That's why I'm saying join your local political party. Get involved as an activist. We saw the election results last week. Congratulations to anyone who become an activist for Reform and send that message. Congratulations to the Patriots that have just shot Keir Starmer. But the message has to be, unless we get organised, unless we get ready, then there's going to be no answer. But violence is coming to us. It's already here. Hostile communities have been imported into our nation who are not going to integrate. They're not going to assimilate. It's heading to a clash. We can beat that through the ballot box, but we have to wake up the 50% who don't vote. The labels, do you know Keir Starmer's video yesterday? He still thinks we're 5 years ago. Because that worked 5 years ago, Keir. The scaremongering, the racist label, the fearmongering, the far right. It doesn't work anymore, does it, people?
And how much time is left on the video? Oh, that's good. And that crowd literally went on for miles. Like you said, we're going to show when we get to RUMBLE the in-depth footage of what was going on today there. He actually mentioned Canada in one of the other clips that we're going to talk about. And the Alberta independence movement is that movement in Canada right now that is going to stand up and try to save Western values inside of, I would say inside North America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to the next one? Peter St. Ong.
Yeah, let's go to the next one if we can.
Peter St. Ong says, quote, "It's official, Alberta will vote on independence after years of abuse from the rest of Canada. If it succeeds, and I don't agree with this, it's 80% odds that Alberta applies to join the U.S.
No, yeah, and I disagree with the second part, but overall, he does very great statistics, and I'm glad that at least it's getting more of an international audience.
Canada's Texas is threatening divorce and could become the 51st state. Alberta leaving Canada is moving from bumper sticker to reality as organizers announced they've collected over 300,000 signatures for a referendum to leave Canada. That's almost twice the signatures needed, triggering a vote in October where Albertans can vote whether to leave Canada, along with a series of questions like voter ID and limiting welfare to migrants. According to prediction market Kalshi, odds of independence are now 1 in 4, which is up from 1 in 10 last December. So the background here is Alberta is basically what happens if Texas marries Wyoming and then gets trapped in an HR seminar run by Ottawa. More important, Alberta is by far the richest province in Canada thanks to roughly 160 billion barrels of oil.
And it's the richest now. When it gets on its own, not when it becomes the 51st state, but when it's on its own free independent nation, you're going to see the economy deregulate and it's going to be 10 times more profitable than it is right now.
The reserves of the entire United States. That would make Alberta the number 4 reserve in the world, just behind Saudi Arabia. In fact, Alberta is so wealthy, it funds the rest of Canada to the tune of $15,000 a year per household, which bothers Albertans, especially when the rest of Canada is trying to kill Alberta's golden goose, blocking pipelines and imposing carbon taxes to the point Alberta exports just 1/10 the ratio of oil reserves as the U.S. The other half is politics. The rest of Canada looks at Albertans as toothless rednecks, since Alberta is by far the most conservative province in Canada. The last national election, Conservatives won 64% of the vote in Alberta and almost 90% of federal seats. This puts Alberta at constant loggerheads with Ottawa.
And one thing you didn't mention there, I mentioned it multiple times on today's show, but it's the biggest asset to Alberta. It's voted conservative for the last 93 years. That would mean a consistent vision if it does the same thing for the next 93 years. So we can sit down and make a long-term strategy. Not even the U.S. can do that. Every 4 or 8 years, you're having a different ideology come in there and try to undo what the previous government did.
And you could maybe go back to voting on policies and actual ideas that each party within the new and independent Alberta might have instead of just ideology. and then actually move forward, move the country forward.
Or you can take a lot of power away from the government.
Well, that too. Yeah.
From firearm ownership to free speech and religion, this all came to a head in the 2022 trucker protests against COVID restrictions. In Alberta, crowds lined highways cheering the truckers. In Ottawa, Justin Trudeau seized their bank accounts to try to starve them out while running down grandmothers with riot cops. It's coming to an even bigger head with a bevy of federal hate speech laws that target conservatives and Christians. Multiple Canadian pastors have been prosecuted for criticizing homosexuality, including a former school trustee fined $750,000 and gagged for life for calling transgenderism, quote, biologically absurd, which of course it is. Another Alberta pastor was sentenced to 12 months house arrest for protesting drag queen events for children. Tribunals in BC and Ontario have levied $10,000 fines for misgendering, while Professor Jordan Peterson was famously ordered to pay $25,000 and undergo pre-noun re-education or lose his license. So it's next brought to you by Be Bitcoin Way.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And pretty soon, it may only be people outside the country that are going to be able to talk about a lot of those issues with a lot of these censorship bills coming into Canada. That's how it is in the UK and the EU. We used to talk when we used to do geopolitics. I made it a point to specifically talk about what's going on in the UK, the EU, and Australia, because there's a lot of videos flooded online of people from those countries begging for people outside of the country to talk about issues and what's going on in the country because they can no longer legally do it, which is a shame.
One of the reasons why we escaped Canada during Justin Trudeau's regime was because we were worried about the censorship that we already saw coming, we already saw being implemented, and the fact that we wanted to use our free speech to fight against all of that, and we couldn't do it from within the country. So that is one of the most important reasons why we're here now.
Yeah, let's go into the next story if we
And
can.
speaking of the UK, Alexandra Lavoie says Glenn Beck drops a bombshell on Starmer's authoritarian UK government that is banning journalists, which they started doing before this rally or before this protest, like my boss Ezra Levant, from entering London for Tommy Robinson's massive rally.
Yeah, they were able to sneak. Oh God, what is her name again?
Alexandra Lavoie.
Yeah, because she wasn't put on the ban list, so Rebel News was able to be there. But a lot of the other Rebel News, not just Ezra, were banned from coming into the UK. Absolutely ridiculous. They're not just doing it in the UK; they're doing it against other right-leaning parties like the AfD in Germany and all across Europe as well.
But also, Keir Starmer banned a bunch of different journalists from a bunch of different countries, too, independent journalists that he doesn't agree with.
And social media content creators, because the last time they had a protest, the social media content creators came from all over the EU, and they didn't want to have those videos getting out online, not to the degree they did last time.
I think this is historic. We're at a pivot point in the world. People are beginning to stand up, and when we all, in all of our different countries, realize, wait a minute, it's not our prime minister or our president that is the problem. We got to get them out of the way. It's the elites versus the people. And once people see they're doing this to all of us, all over the world, they're collapsing the Western civilization. When we start supporting each other in a freedom movement, that's when the world changes. So it was important for me to be here just as a witness to history, and then I was asked to speak, and now I've been told that I may not come back. I may not be allowed back if I speak, which fine with me. I mean, I love Great Britain. I love Great Britain. The history here, we are one, as you know, we're from the same parentage. But if I'm banned for the things that I'm going to say today, Great Britain's already lost. It's already lost. I'm only going to be talking about first principles. I'm going to be talking about the founding principles of America that came from here. And if you're going to call me a hater for those, then I'm sorry, Great Britain. I don't want to come and visit you. There is nothing here. People need to wake up. If that's what they're banning, the British people need to wake up and stand up. And I'm glad that they are.
Yeah, and I meant to say on the absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure he's going to speak. That being said, I wanted to give the warning of we really hope they're not trying to put on the globalists aren't trying to put it on the skin suit of right-wing populism. We know they will because they desperately need a war in Europe right now to reset everything. Right now, nobody's going to fight for left-wing ideology. So if they quickly try to put the skin suit on of right-wing politics and then usher in a war with Russia, that's the thing. vote right wing, but do not vote to go to war with Russia. It would be a mistake. Absolutely.
And we even profiled Glenn Beck because he has been speaking to Keith Wilson months ago as well. He brought him on to talk about Alberta, but also the downfall of Canada. And he continuously brings him on to talk about this. And it's one of the bigger voices in the US that is giving a voice to Alberta's independence, but also, and because we continue to say, it is important for the rest of the world and the international community, I hate that term, to be able to know what's going on in Alberta, because it's very similar to what the UK and the Unite the Right. Unite Britain, whatever it's called. Tommy Robinson's rally today is about.
Okay, let's go into the next story.
I had a point, but I lost it.
Yeah, I could tell. That's why I said go into the next
somewhere
story.
In the middle. Juno News says Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada is focused on building quote-unquote trusts with investors, Indigenous partners, and Asian markets by positioning Alberta as a reliable energy supplier. He adds that a potential West Coast pipeline could be designated a project of national interest by October 1st.
Yeah, and we showed her half of the speech, her being Danielle Smith, so I just wanted to show Carney's pitch here.
So last week, the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, visited Canada, and he spoke about the most important commodity in the world, something that Canada has in abundance, something that we're building today, and that's trust. Trust to double the reliable and affordable energy available to Albertans. As the Premier just said, drawing on all the resources of this great province.
It's not affordable energy, not with all the regulations and hoops that he wants there, and he keeps calling it affordable energy. It's the most expensive energy in the world.
Gas, renewables, extending potentially out to nuclear, geothermal, and beyond. We're building trust of investors, that Alberta and Canada are reliable and attractive destinations where opportunities are plentiful, the rules are clear, and one project means one review. It's the trust of Asian countries who want our energy because they know that we are a safe.
And when he says Asian countries, he means China. Everything will be going to China. And when he talks about possibly nuclear, you're going to build one plant. The United States is completely deregulated and is building hundreds of nuclear power plants, small, medium, and large right now.
Stable, reliable partner in a world that is anything but. Today's implementation agreement is comprehensive and it's interconnected. It covers, amongst other things, regulation, markets, methane, renewables, and carbon capture. It includes, as you just heard, Alberta's commitment to submit a comprehensive proposal for a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets.
Yeah, Alberta's commitment to submit is what it was. And that's what this entire MOU is. And you're going to destroy your own industries because these regulations are going to be attached to every future project. That's what she's agreed to. We can leave it there. That was the last article. We'll go into post, and then we'll go to RUMBLE, which is going to revolve all around what happened in Britain today.
We were already in post. We're going to comments. Michael Drader says 18 more likes. Thank you so much. Sean says, Nat, come up with that without seeing Starship Troopers. Nat, you must watch it. That is mandatory.
She's never watched it.
I have no idea what it is.
She has watched so few good movies. It's crazy.
No, I haven't.
You watch she watches the 80s and 90s rom-coms.
Well, I'm an advocate to bring them back, yes, because they've quashed femininity by getting rid of those.
Okay, let's continue on here.
I could go on a tangent. Michael Drader says, sounds like a new intro to Aces High by Iron Maiden. Also no idea.
That's the song he made, I believe.
Oh, okay. Got it. Pete says, because Ottawa says so, Todd. Apparently that's all they need. Hold on. Sean says, Todd, because they have cool head things they wear with all those feathers, probably from endangered birds, but it's okay. And asking that question obviously makes you a racist.
Yeah.
Michael Drader says, get all like button happy. Thank you so much, Michael Drader, for trying to help us out. It really does help. Pete says, why would anyone in their right mind piss off thousands of Irish people? Guy, you were a bouncer. That question is for you.
It's a shame what happened with the most recent Irish protests. They ended up fizzling and dying out. I'm glad to see what's happening in the UK today, but Ireland needs to stand back up and raise their voice again. I mean, it seems to rise up and then die down in Ireland every 6 or 8 months. So I really thought this was the time that there was going to be something more there.
But is the stereotype real with the Irish?
About what?
Because he says, Guy, you were a bouncer. That question is for you.
Well, repeat the question.
That why would anyone in their right mind piss off thousands of Irish people?
Well, Ireland's a lot different today as well, because half the Irish are very patriotic and independent, but the other half are even worse off than Canadians. They absolutely love globalism, and it's shocking when you talk to them, because I've worked in a lot of Irish bars, so I've interacted. So it's a hit or a miss with the Irish these days, and it's a shame because they all used to be freedom-minded and patriotic.
You gave a very sober answer. I wanted like, oh yeah, they get crazy, they yell and shout and break glasses.
Let's continue.
Michael Drader says, imagine an Adam Guy wedding, 250 guests, and not one designated driver. Well, we're sober, so we can drive.
Yeah, we've been drinking about 10 years.
Sean says, Guy, that's actually a relatively new thing in the USA. Historically, the last 100 years, the US has been fairly constrained to the center.
Yeah, but still, because it's a two-party system, it just keeps going back and forth. No. And it can make some moves ahead, but even since Reagan got in, you see mass migration slowly swell up until what it is today, which thank God for Trump, because he came in there and is trying to correct it.
Michael Drader says, that sounds good in theory. I'm guessing because Roland Halleck said something about having no parties, but it's very difficult to elect officials without a banner that represents a platform.
Yeah, and Reagan was one of the best modern presidents. The problem was a lot of historians actually, a lot of the globalist policy started with Reagan as well, but it was under a conservative banner.
Don't you love it when I read something and then he ignores it and answers the last one? Sean says, they put my Dutch girl on the list, so she couldn't go. Yeah, Eva Vlaardingerbroek.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other people as well. Michael says, 17 more likes. Get going with those thumbs up motions. Thank you so much. Pete says, don't hit twice though, because it works in reverse. Yeah, if you hit the like button twice, you unlike it essentially. Pete says, besides, troglodyte cut off my other thumb. Michael Drader says, Glenn Beck's entire team is mint. Chad Prather is my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic what he's built with Blaze TV there.
And his new thing, Lantern? Something like that. Something to do with light. Pete says, can you put your finger right here, Trog? Sean says, Unite the Right is a psyop by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah, that's not what it's called. It's called something else. Tommy Robinson's rally. Michael Drader says, just playing devil's advocate, would it not be easy for an independent official to pivot on the principles they were elected on? Because they were talking about having no parties. Sean says, renewables are not reliable. They're by their very nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you dig into it, clean energy or green energy is actually some of the dirtiest energy, whether it's the manufacturing and recycling of battery cells, the fact that they don't last that long. Same with wind, same with solar. They last 10 to 15 years, then they have to be replaced. It's almost impossible to recycle them. If you are going to recycle them, it costs massive amounts of energy to do so. It also costs massive amounts of energy to actually manufacture them in the first place.
Sean says, Carney is always pausing now. The whole new world order thing is less cool. Because that's just how he talks. Pete says, the problem with Carney's rhetoric is that it sells to Laurentians, but investors say no thanks. Hold on. Sean says, because all the cool Irish left Ireland. Pete says, how do you say it? No worry, Talk. I have the means isolated.
Well, the thing with the Irish is, they all leave the country when they're young and then they go back when they're older. But they get this idea that migration, they like migration, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them like immigration and migration because they actually migrate to other countries a lot, and their family members do it a lot. So they think it's good. Not all of them. They're still a core group, but that's why they're having trouble getting critical mass, I believe, inside of the country.
Sean says, Todd, I'm rooting for... Oh, sorry. Michael Drader says 16 more likes. Wow, we almost there. Sean says...
We're not going to make it today, but we do appreciate everybody that did hit the like button.
Thank you so much. Sean says, I'm rooting for Buffalo to put it, but... Oh, they're talking about... I'm guessing hockey. They're all talking about hockey now with the members are, so I have no idea what they're talking about.
Let's go over to RUMBLE.
Let me see if I find any good ones just from not members. Because it was an interesting discussion going on, but now I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Hold on.
Okay, we're going to have too much dead air. Let's go over to RUMBLE if we can.
Talk.
Well, we don't have any stories up there.
Talk.
Okay. So we're going to go over to RUMBLE. We'll see you over there in just a few minutes. If you're not subscribed, please do so. And if you can, hit that like button. It always does help. Thank you for everybody that hit the like button today. I think that was the most we had during a live stream. We usually get a lot afterwards. So I think we'll make 100 now.
Michael Drader says 15 more. So there we go. And also thank you so much, Michael Drader, for the initiative as well and for offering to get people 5 memberships, gifting 5 memberships. Pete says...
and thanks for everybody that did get the memberships today. It really does help overall, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. And again, I will get better at reading the members ones first. Sean says Ireland got rich, but the Irish didn't get rich.
Yeah, it was a big banking scam, and that's what that country is now.
Exactly. Okay, we'll see you over at RU. Thank you so much, everybody that joined us. We'll see you over at RUMBLE, 10-second Waitscreen. And we're talking about the Tommy Robinson rally for the whole time. And I might read some of the ones I missed as well over there.